The WBC is committed to accelerating progress and driving impact, as you've heard. We do this through collaboration and transparency. We do this by building the movement dedicated to equity for women in business, and as we keep saying, equal position, pay, and power for all businesswomen. As of this summit, we have 57 partner organizations and resource partners with whom we work to collaborate and coordinate, aggregate and amplify, and convene and support, much like having you all here today. The WBC collaborates and coordinates against our 9 action initiatives. The first 3 focus on executive women's leadership in business. They are CEO leadership and sponsorship of women CEOs, women in the C-suite and executive leadership with P&L responsibility, women in the boardroom. Our next 3 action initiatives focus on the underrepresentation of women in business in specific sectors: women's entrepreneurship and access to capital, women in capital and finance, and women in technology. And the final 3 are critical to equity for women in business and cut across all. These are diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender and pay parity, and women in the pipeline. You will hear about all of these in our breakout sessions at the end of today. But let's talk about our targets. This is where we're going. Where are we going? Well, we want 15% of Fortune 500 and S&P 500 CEO roles to be women by 2025. We want women to constitute 20% of those being considered for CEO roles by 2025. We want 10% of all women in the C-suite to be women of color. And we want 8% of women occupying the C-suite to have substantial P&L responsibility by 2025. As we talked about yesterday, we want 25% of candidates assessed for the C-suite to be women. And of course, we want gender and pay parity in the C-suite by 2030. But also, and importantly, we want a 20% increase in women-owned business generating 5 million or more by 2025. We want the percentage of venture capital available to women founders to double by 2025. It's only 2.3% in 2018. And we would want to decrease the female quit rate in the tech sector by 50%. So to talk about these targets, progress, and our collaboration, we have the key leaders of some of our partner organizations, including Jose Zeilstra, the CEO of Gender Fair and a WBC board member. Jose, welcome, and let's take it away to talk about targets and collaboration for impact.
Thank you, Gwen. There's been so much progress made, and the following 3 leaders of Women Business Collaboratives partner organizations are going to share how they are advancing on some of these 9 action initiatives via their work. First, I'd like to introduce you to Camille Burns, CEO of the Women Presidents Organization. The Women Presidents Organization is a nonprofit membership organization of more than 2,000 women presidents of multi-million-dollar companies around the globe. Their mission is to accelerate business growth, enhance competitiveness, and promote economic security through confidential and collaborative peer learning groups. Next, we have Anna Mock, President and CEO of Ascend. Ascend is the largest Pan-Asian business professional membership organization in North America, and their mission is to drive workplace and societal impact by developing and elevating all Asian and Pacific Islander business leaders and empowering them to become catalysts for change. And lastly, we have Candace Waterman, President and CEO of Women Impacting Public Policy. WIPP is a national nonpartisan organization advocating on behalf of women entrepreneurs, strengthening their impact on our nation's public policy, creating economic opportunities, and forging alliances with other business organizations. Welcome to our panelists. So let's begin this conversation by talking about why targets matter. Can you each share what your organization is measuring and how progress is being tracked and shared? Let's start with Anna, then Candace, and then Camille.
Thank you, and thank you for the great work to WBC. Ascend has been so thrilled to be part of this collective and collaborative and the recognition, frankly, that women, all women, of course, but women of color play a very important role, and that we are not forgotten that Asian women also are women of color, which sometimes we forget. So thank you collectively for all remembering that and in having us part of this. Now, this discussion about tracking and measurements has been a very complex one for us as an organization, and actually for the Asian and Pacific Islander community, in the sense that the sentiment of we don't want to get there just because there was a goal. We want that seat at the table because we know we deserve to be there. So it's very nuanced, and I think all of us grapple with that. Whether setting goals creates a dynamic that has unintended consequences, because we don't want to get there because people were forced to get there. We want to get there because we earned it. So, but as an organization, as community, and learning from so many great women organizations, we realize it's very important to do that. Because if we don't set the goals and we don't have that measurement, it's too much disputed about what success looks like. And there's not facts on the table. So I believe us having those numbers and having the goals allows for the conversation, first and foremost, to then unveil what are the misunderstandings or misperceptions about the realities. And so as for Ascend, we've done a few things. If you've tracked our research, you've seen we've done a lot of research in particular around Asians and women into the C-suite and also corporate boardrooms. And that is where we are most focused on. I think many know for at least the API community, it has been in general less about getting Asians, again, it's varied by segment, into the professional workforce, but it has been very much about advancement, similar to, I would say, women at large. And there is so much unknown about the successes of Asians. So for example, people don't realize that only 3% of women executives are of Asian descent, in spite of more than doubling that in the professional workforce. People don't realize that in a corporate boardroom, that there are only 4.4% of all Fortune 1000 board seats that are represented by Asian voice. So I use those as examples. So we have heavily focused on our research and creating data to make sure we can look at and baseline, in particular, those two segments. And we will continue to do more, even beyond that. But there is so much work we've had to do just even to get those facts out there and people understanding that.
Thank you, Anna. How about yourself, Candace?
Thank you so much. I have to, of course, start by saying thank you to Edie and the powerhouse that she is. And of course, as Anna stated, WIPP is so proud to be a part of the WBC. And I say congratulations to all on the 3,600 registrants today. That reach is amazing. You know, Anna really laid out a good foundation in saying getting the data sometimes is difficult, but very, very important. And for WIPP, as we focus on sort of three pillars, if you will, advocacy, community, and education, we are really entrepreneurial focused. So that is where we are looking as we talk about tracking, right? So if I take each of those three pillars and look at them separately, particularly from an advocacy perspective, we are tracking our impact on public policy as it relates to women in business. You know, like ensuring that women have access to contracts. So looking at the infrastructure bill and being really engaged in the new percentages and the new increases for small businesses from 23 to 25%. We've worked over decades to advocate for the WOSB federal contracting program because women, were not at the table and now we are. Though the goal has only been met twice, one of which in 2019, the goal of 5% was exceeded at 5.19%. We have asked in this new infrastructure bill, as we look at increasing overall 23 to 25%, particularly for women-owned small businesses, a 7% increase, right? So when I look at how we're measuring, it is, can we have these policies put in place, which ultimately affect the access that our women business owners have to contracts and therefore to equity, right, and parity in the marketplace. One other that I think is really important from an advocacy perspective for us to mention, particularly again from a measurement perspective, is the Runway Act. This is where they take a 5-year look back at revenues instead of 3. That was huge for women to have, again, an opportunity and access to those procurement opportunities in the marketplace. There's also the Women and Minority Equity Act that was introduced in 2019 prior to COVID, right, disrupting our world. And those things are important. So those are the kinds of things that we measure from an advocacy perspective. What policies are in place, that is where sustainable actions occur and sustainable impact occur. Now, as we look at our community from a community perspective, it is really about how our community is moving from contact to contracts, right, in both public and private sector. And is the community answering our calls to action as we have laid out here today, right? There is a call to action for all of our community to be involved, particularly from a policy perspective. As I say, it's policy, not politics, and our business owners need to be involved in that process along the way. And then lastly, when you look at education, which is probably the most difficult to measure, if you will, we track our impact on programming. And is that having a positive effect for our business owners as they get procurement ready and capacity expansion? So all 3 of these components sort of make up our ecosystem of success and what we are tracking. And each year we are looking at how do we course correct on tracking, because it is, can be very difficult, as Anna has stated.
That's great work. Thank you. Camille?
Okay, first of all, I also want to thank you and thank Edie so much. I have to say, as someone who's been in this women's business space for 20 plus years, Candace has been along with me the entire way. It's just such an incredible feeling to see all of these different organizations coming together. So I really want to applaud you on all of the work that you've done and congratulate Edie. I look at our role with targets as a little bit different. We're kind of a niche organization working with business owners that are running multi-million-dollar companies. So where I see our role is, what can we do to help organizations like WBC achieve your targets? What can we do to help Candace and help WIPP achieve their targets? We have a couple programs we do where we're tracking some data, and a couple that I would like to point out. First of all, we do a 50 fastest women-owned led list every year. We're partnering with JP Chase this year. And that list is a combination of percentage and real growth. And the women who make this list are running incredibly fast-growing businesses. The data that we track with this list is seeing what do those women look like. And over the years, watching the women in that group, they're younger, they're more diverse, and seeing the kind of impact that these women can have. And then looking at that and talking about the recognition that Edie was mentioning, getting these women the kind of recognition and visibility to tell the world there are young, diverse women running incredibly fast-growing companies. And women are making a huge impact in all sorts of industries. These are not some of the industries I think people typically think of as industries that women may be running businesses in. The second study we do every year is we look at we do a business outlook survey. We partner with EY and their Winning Women program. And with this survey, we're able to look at what benefits are women business owners providing? What are their funding sources? What are their obstacles to scaling? What are their business priorities? And we can take this data, analyze the results, look at what has shifted, and then look at goals like those set by WBC and see what are these obstacles and what can we do as an organization providing learning, providing peer networking opportunities to support the women in our communities to grow so they can help achieve these goals. One of which I can think of off the top of my head is the access to capital issue. And we see when we run this survey every year, we just recently conducted the survey, that the majority of women in our community running these larger businesses are still funding their businesses with their own money, with their friends and family, with lines of credit and credit cards. And I think it's really important to look at, okay, what can we do to help these women have that access to capital so that we can help organizations like WBC and all of these other women's organizations achieve these goals.
Thank you, Camille. The WBC is all about collaboration. It's about being faster together. So I'd like to ask our panelists to talk a little bit about how you are collaborating with others in the public, private, and or nonprofit sectors in order to achieve the targets that you've laid out? And how has collaboration accelerated your progress? So let's start with Candace, then we'll go to Camille and with Anna.
Thank you. I am so happy about this question because I think there is a misnomer to dispel, right? Because I truly believe that we go further together. Therefore, I never look at any of my peers or peer organizations from a competitive perspective, even though we're all in the women's business space, right? Because none of us do the same thing in the same way. And that's the beauty of collaboration. And that is the beauty of bringing like-minded organizations together. Looking at what it is that we are delivering and where there is alignment in what we're delivering, let's partner on that. Because we know one big, strong voice, right? A collective voice is stronger than what I call popcorn voices. Particularly as I look at the work that we're doing on the Hill, it's really important to go in and have a collective, concerted effort because you just get further, right? Faster, if you will. One of the ways, just as most recent, that we're collaborating is we put together a survey with NAWBO, shared it with our other partners to obtain feedback on issues that are affecting our women businesses as we're looking at this infrastructure bill, reconciliation bill. We needed feedback on wage increase and from government contracting perspective, and how is that going to affect our women-owned businesses, childcare, and of course, everything else, right, in the infrastructure bill. And really obtaining this information and doing so in a collaborative manner helps us with conversations as we work so hard to level the playing field for the 12.9 million women-owned businesses across the country. And as a W20 delegate to the G20, it is doing so across the globe as we talk about, what do we do to help our women across the globe in moving the needle forward with the support that they need. And just as it was mentioned earlier, with our women in Afghanistan, to look at how can we support them to get what they need so that they can be viewed and have some kind of parity, right? So it really is, I think, imperative for us to work together. And the WBC is a great example of how to do that successfully. And that's why we're so proud to be a part of the collective.
Well, we're happy to have you as part of the collective. Camille.
First of all, I can't tell you how much I love this question. To me, collaboration is everything. And Marsha Firestone, who started the WPO almost 25 years ago, the tagline from day one has been reaching further together. So we've sort of had collaboration in our blood, running peer advisory groups. It's all about the women coming together and collaborating with each other. And I have to say, through the pandemic, it just became so clear to me how much we as a community have to collaborate, that I feel like it's really a new day for women, and that we're seeing how much value there is when we collaborate. I watched women get through this pandemic because they had other women business owners at their side in completely different industries, helping them make sure that they could navigate everything that was going on. And I look at all of these organizations coming together. We're never going to achieve these goals if we try and do it alone. There's nothing WPO can do by itself to achieve any of these goals. But when we all work together, the 3 organizations on this call and all of the other organizations that are part of this collective, when we work together, these goals aren't that hard to achieve if we actually put our minds to it and put in the effort necessary. So we partner with women's organizations, global organizations, but I also want to give a shout out to the corporations that support organizations like ours and other organizations in our community. Without the corporations who really not only put their money where their mouth is, but also put people on the ground and put the energy and effort into helping the women's business community, it's extremely important. And I'll just speak of a recent collaboration we're working on with Walmart, where we've had a long relationship with Walmart, and we started having conversations about our diversity goals. And they came to us and said, what can we do to help the second stage, the multi-million-dollar woman of color who's running a business? And so we're in this process of working on a program with them together. And I look at the WBC goal of helping increase the revenues for minority-owned firms. And I think, well, Walmart and WPO looking at these multi-million-dollar companies, if we can help people scale, then we can help WBC achieve that goal. And so I really, really am so happy that all of these organizations have come together, because I really think that we can achieve so much if we all work together on all of these objectives.
Great thoughts. Thank you. Anna, how about you?
Thank you for asking the question. You know, the roots of many of our organizations, and in particular for Ascend, is about collaboration. Now that we're 16 years old, I think people forget the history that organizations started being seeded by the Big Four. So some of you may know I'm a partner at Deloitte. And when I think back to that, we asked all the firms to suspend their competitive interests with each other to help us get started over a decade and a half ago, which meant that we asked companies, to Camille's point, we asked companies to really act for the community at large on a common goal. And I think really sticking to that core has been what our organization has been about, right? We've taken industry by industry, working with companies that, again, at times are fiercely fighting for market share, fighting for talent, fighting for mind share, and really being a facilitator in getting us together on what is most common about our struggles and our goals, and to drive that. So at the companies, we've been doing that and playing a very important role to bring organizations together so they can actually collaborate, not only with us, but with each other. When I think about the community organizations, and back to Candace and Camille's point, you know, I would say, as leaders of these nonprofits, we can set these goals, but they really aren't goals of our organization. They are community goals. They are goals that we have taken the leadership to set on behalf of, so we can drive change. So without the collaboration, without partnerships like we have with WBC and many others, that's not going to happen in terms of achieving those goals. And also recognizing that collaboration leads to many voices of organizations and people that don't look like us. And that is very, very important. So Ascend has been spending a lot of our time, not only on collaboration with other racial equity organizations, but other organizations that really don't look like us, I'll just put that in the broadest sense. I firmly believe that collaboration leads to us really negating the negative effects of competition so that we can build stronger community. And so that is really a starting point in terms of driving the concept of community. And it is only with community that we actually can drive change.
Fantastic, Anna, and the discussion of collaboration, the importance of advocacy. So now in a minute or less, as we're closing this out, to this very large audience of interested people, organizations, activists, what is your one call to action in 2021? What can you do? What can your organization do to really drive us towards target, doing this faster together, getting to where we need to go? Camille, take us away.
Sure. My call to action comes from watching what has happened through the pandemic, where we have seen that it's not just about enhancing leadership skills, it's not just about enhancing knowledge, but it's about enhancing the whole leader. And when I think about the leader as a whole person, I think it is so particularly true of women. So my call to action is to not just educate and make sure we're giving people information, but to remember that women are whole people. And we need to do what we can to enhance the entire person so that we can be better leaders, we can do more in our communities, we can have greater impact, and we can grow bigger businesses.
I love it. Anna, call to action.
One of the big call to actions we'll have as an organization is this concept that builds on what Camille said, which is belonging. I hear so often from our members and from others how they don't feel they belong. But that sense of belonging is not just an individual's responsibility. It is us as systems and organizations to help the individual feel and know they belong. And so I think if we adopt the mindset, if you as a leader adopt the mindset of how you are going to help others know and hear and feel they belong, then it becomes a shared effort versus an individual effort on getting to our goals.
Absolutely. Candace, call to action 2021 and beyond.
I will end with 3. Be involved, be engaged, be committed. Be involved in the political process and policy to understand how it affects business. Our businesses are paying taxes based on policy today and everything else. So be involved, be engage with all of the organizations that are part of the WBC so that you can get what you need from a success perspective. And lastly, I'll end with be committed. Be committed to the success of others around you because we absolutely go further together.
I love that. Involved, engaged, committed, transparency, collaboration, and we will get there. We will get to these targets. I would love to thank you all for being partners in the Women Business Collaborative, for talking today so openly about what your organization is doing, what we're doing together with the Women Business Collaborative, and how we're going to get to equal position pay and power for all business women. Thank you.